Oh, yeah, excellent question, and you're absolutely right. For me, it means that I'm going to be camping out in Chicagoland. I love Chicago, so that'll be easy for me to do.
Okay.
But from a messaging perspective, I think is where we failed as Republicans. We historically, recent history, have not done a good job of messaging to Black Americans, and sometimes we don't message at all, and or the message is that we don't care about you and your communities. And so one of the things that I've taken upon myself to do is to push Republicans to really revisit how we message to the Black American community, and that we need to message to a Black American community that is generally socially conservative, right?
Agreed.
In terms of, you know, we're very observant of religious doctrine and practice and the like. So we align in many ways with the Republican Party, but the party doesn't reach out to us. I think in my observation, I think where Republicans lose the Black vote is our general unwillingness to address the matters of concern to Black people. So let's talk about some of those. The way we talk about poverty and family structure in the Black American community turns many Black Americans off. We talk about, you know, single mothers and welfare queens and all of that kind of nonsense that was coming out, when the reality is most of the people on welfare are white folks in America. We don't talk about race and racism as if it doesn't exist, when the reality is that there are some ways in which systems do not properly serve Black Americans. So you think about the fact that Black Americans are more than half of the people exonerated for false imprisonment. You think about what happened here just in Chicagoland alone with John Burge and what he did with torturing Black men, and how they had a whole torture committee related to that. We ignore those types of things. I think it's unnecessary to ignore those things and to still talk about conservative principles of personal responsibility, fiscal responsibility, and all of that. So we have to find more nuance and accuracy, I think, in the way we message. I think the way we talk about Black Americans leaving the Democratic Party as if we have something, we haven't shaped up any kind of framing to offer Black Americans to say, we see you, we understand the issues. Let's talk about how our principles can apply to your situation. For example, we talk a lot about plantation politics. So
Yes.
Black people leaving the plantation, blah, blah, blah. And what I always ask people is, would we use the Holocaust or Auschwitz as a punchline? Would we say to Jews, when you gonna get off that concentration camp? So I'm going to go back to plantation politics.
Please.
So we talk about plantation politics when we're reaching out to Black people and trying to think about why they vote primarily Democrat. Part of the reason is because Democrats do address and acknowledge our issues. The other thing is, when we're out doing outreach as Republicans to Black people, or even talking about Black people as if they're not in the room, we talk about them leaving the Democrat plantation. And what I say is, what we're doing there is alienating Black folks and making a mockery of basically what generational Americans experienced in this nation. We would never talk to the Jewish community about when you're gonna leave the concentration camp, right? Using Auschwitz as a punchline. I think those things they're lowbrow, and they show to me a simplistic acknowledgement. The point for me as a Republican is not to deride the Black American community. My point is to invite them in to the Republican Party, to have something for them to see about how we're going to address the problems that affect the community. And let's be real, every community looks to government to govern, to solve problems, to ensure life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. So there's nothing about that that's a handout. That's the social contract that we, the governed, have made with government.
You know, when I'm listening to you speak, and I'm thinking about messaging that I hear from both sides, and I think, I'd love to hear your opinion on this, obviously. I think the missed opportunity is that, and I'll say Democrats do this in particular, they speak to demographics in their silos, as opposed to speaking to everyone about their common needs, to your point.